Um, I love doing the Big Finish stories. I think it's wonderful that they've developed our characters, that we can go on and become things like, in my case, President of Gallifrey, which I would never have done in the television. So it's really nice.
The 1990s were a dark time to be a Doctor Who fan. After the cancellation of the classic series in 1989 and the failed revival in 1996, it seemed that throughout the decade, we'd never again get to experience the adventures of our favourite two-hearted time traveller. We eventually did become reunited in 2005, but what about the wilderness years, between 89 and 2005? While there were many books printed, and Doctor Who magazine was still selling strong, there was one avenue that was proving to be just as popular. High-quality audio dramas by the little company over at Big Finish Productions. Not only serving to tide the classic fans until the revival, but having impacted Doctor Who for the better in the years to come.
One thing in listening to Big Finish is it's really had me come around to Colin Baker, really.
To the people who are listening, it's not for you, you're not making it for you, you're making it for we make this for you, for other people.
As a fan, is this something I would buy? And if the answer is yes, the chances are a lot of other fans like me would buy it as well.
My name is Will Burke, and welcome to Doctor Who, The Finish Line. The year is 1989. Michael Keaton is playing Batman. Indiana Jones goes on his final crusade. Nirvana releases their debut album, and Doctor Who is currently on its 26th and final series. After competing with many changing time slots, underwhelming stories, the popularity of American imports such as Star Trek The Next Generation, and failing to prove to the BBC that the show still had potential, Jonathan Powell, the new controller at BBC One, had the series cancelled in August of the same year.
There are worlds out there where the sky is burning.
What you're currently hearing is the final scene from the final story in the classic series, Survival, with Sylvester McCoy's monologue being recorded and included last minute after the writers learned of the series' cancellation.
Come on, Ace. We've got work to do.
Doctor Who, the juggernaut of British pop culture throughout the early 60s all the way to the late 80s, was just swept under the rug and forgotten about. The show that united many families around the telly after tea time was discarded and hidden, like the BBC were embarrassed about it. Whilst the Virgin New Adventures book series was a popular way for the fans to embrace new stories with the Doctor and to rediscover older stories thanks to the novelizations, it just wasn't the same as watching the story play out on television and hearing the lines of dialogue said by our favourite actors. There was still love for the programme, as many of the actors from the series often made appearances at conventions. The only time that Doctor Who returned on screen in that time was the 1993 Children in Need special, Dimensions in Time. And despite having all of the living Doctors at the time, from Pertwee to McCoy present, it wasn't well received and it wasn't an official story. The fact it was a crossover with EastEnders really didn't help the fact.
What year is this? Oh, don't you start. There's enough oddballs around here as it is.
Madam, what year is this?
2013.
In 1996, in collaboration with the American television network Fox, the BBC released a continuation of the TV series. This was in the form of a television movie, starring Paul McGann in the lead role as the 8th incarnation of the title character.
Maybe you're the result of some weird genetic experiment.
I don't think so.
But you have no recollection of family.
No.
Despite the excellent performance from McGann, high viewing figures in the UK, and the return of Sylvester McCoy for the regeneration scene, thus connecting this film to the continuity, it failed to make a good impression overseas in America, as it was too confusing and odd for audiences to follow and become invested in.
What? These shoes! They fit perfectly.
If you do a pilot, obviously, the point is that you're there in order that the thing is successful and goes to a series. That's the understanding.
Paul McGann, the 8th Doctor.
One just has to be philosophical. It's showbiz. These things rarely happen. So you might be disappointed for a day. But at the same time, and again, to be perfectly honest, part of me perhaps my wife too, and people that have been in this position think, well, you know what? Maybe I dodged a bullet.
It seemed that Doctor Who was meant to stay dead for the foreseeable future. In the same year of 1996, a group of fans had started creating and releasing unofficial Doctor Who audio stories, known as the audio visuals. These fan projects continued the Doctor's adventures through time and space, with this newly regenerated Doctor played by amateur actor Nicholas Briggs. This team had created over 28 different audios in this audio visual series, with Nicholas Briggs playing the Doctor and Gary Russell producing every single one of them, as well as financial support from their friend Jason Haigh Ellery.
I knew Nick vaguely from various events and so forth.
Jason Haigh Ellery, managing director at Big Finish Productions.
It was really the first time when I went in and acted opposite him. It was the first time I'd actually really spent a lot of time with Nick. And the first thing that happened was I was in a scene with him and I was sitting there thinking, God, he's a really good actor. He's really bloody good. And there was silence in the room. And then I realized, oh, it's my line. And I thought, oh, God, right. So I was concentrating more on him than me.
Guns and shouting, so why don't you just listen?
He's right, sir. Go on, Doctor.
The Temperon isn't our enemy, but something terrible is happening here. Something so devastating.
Because he is a very good actor. And over the years, you know, we always knew that Nick would find his niche at some point. I always bet that he would end up being a surgeon on Holby City or on Casualty. But he ends up being the Daleks, the Jadoon, the Cybermen. You know, his voice work is brilliant.
Whilst not having the greatest production or the best sound quality, these audios did raise the question, could Doctor Who work in an audio format? After the first few entries in the audio-visual range, the company, now rebranded as Big Finish Productions, began adapting few of the early new adventures. However, they did not include the Doctor and were rewritten to include the character of Bernice Summerfield, a time-travelling archaeologist and action hero, in the same vein as characters like Indiana Jones, Nathan Drake, and of course, Lara Croft.
We originally went after Doctor Who in 1998, and they said, what have you got to show us? And we went, nothing really. So they said, I think you need to go away, do something and come back, which is what we did, because we gained access to the Benny stuff very easily. And because they were so willing, they really wanted it to happen because it was good for the brand.
These stories featured many actors from the original series of Doctor Who, including Nicholas Courtney, Colin Baker, and Sophie Aldred, to name a few. The team used their experience from the audio-visual series to create this series at a professional level and higher quality.
Oh, the stench of this place.
It's been long abandoned, I'd say. Or maybe it's a student house. Look, there's a huge pile of washing up in the sink. Hello?
We did the Bennies, did the first 4 or 5, and we took them into the BBC and showed them, and they went, oh, okay, we know you can do this now. That's fine. And at the time, it's got to remember that Doctor Who was a little bit of a dead series. And it was just sitting there waiting for someone to do something with it. So it was a bit of an open door because we were asking the right questions at the right time of the right people.
With this new collection of successful audio stories, Big Finish then approached the BBC in hopes of obtaining the Doctor Who license.
We got in there, got the license. Originally, it was a 3-year license. And I said our original intention was to produce one production every 2 months for 3 years, because we thought if we could get 18 productions out, then we would have done a brilliant job, and you know, we would have done some Doctor Who and been very proud of that. And I think if that's the way it would have gone, I would have been very happy to have done 18 productions and got out.
The first official Doctor Who audio drama under the Big Finish name was The Sirens of Time, featuring Doctors 5 to 7, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy, respectively. This was a historic moment as these incarnations of the character had never shared a multi-Doctor story with each other before. There was dimensions in time, but I don't think we need to bring that up again.
Temperon? Temperon!
Folds its way through the oceans of time, serene, sublime.
Who? Oh, so that's how things turned out for me.
And for me, it seems. Any more of us?
Just the three, it would appear.
Well, we must be thankful for small mercies, mustn't we?
We're on Gallifrey. This is the Panopticon.
I think one of the best pieces of marketing I ever did was to pay for a CD to go on the front cover of Doctor Who magazine, which was the first episode of the Sirens of Time, and an overview of the Sirens of Time, and showed that the three Doctors were coming back, and that this was real Doctor Who, real drama Doctor Who. And because we'd done that free disc, the sales on the first production were through the roof, so much higher than we expected. And I think we sort of slightly underestimated the desire by Doctor Who fans for new Doctor Who drama.
The first few releases of audio dramas were set up the same way as the classic series, usually having 4 parts of the story split up across 2 discs. They were being well received by critics and fans alike. They saw that these stories gave each incarnation greater chances to develop their versions of the character. Particularly the 6th Doctor, Colin Baker, who started off his tenure as an unlikable and more egocentric character who never really caught on with viewers. However, stories like Jubilee and the Holy Terror gave the chance for Baker to develop his incarnation more, and give the audience more of a better connection to him, as well as giving him more opportunities to show off his acting chops.
About evil! A long time ago, a race evolved which had an obsession with power. Power was at the center of all its thoughts. How to conquer, how to tyrannize. They could only define themselves by the lives they had taken or the slaves they had collected. Listen to me! The Daleks were genetically engineered to see all other life as a threat. Human beings are different. Humans have a choice. The race I was describing was not the Daleks. What excuse do you have?
One thing in listening to Big Finish is it's really had me come around to Colin Baker, really.
Michael Kirwan, recent fan.
So the first one I listened to was Jubilee, but I felt as a newcomer, Jubilee was quite a nice introduction because I know who the Daleks are. I think Colin Baker has a lovely, comforting voice. It's brilliantly produced, and I think that probably goes with all the Big Finishes. They all seem to be very well made. Few minor issues here and there, but it was kind of like a nice, comforting one. There weren't too many characters. They all had kind of distinct, nice voices. And I think the idea of having kind of that alternate British Empire was quite cool. And the fact that they kind of wiped out the Daleks.
The Doctor that got the most advantage from the Big Finish stories, however, was Paul McGann's 8th incarnation. Since he only had one outing in the TV movie, the audios were the ideal place for him to prove to the world that he had a good incarnation inside of him.
So no, I was approached by them, that is Jason at Big Finish, and it's effectively, it was, do you want to do a radio play? Do you want to do Doctor Who on the radio? Which is the, and I was trained to do that. I'd done radio things before. It sounded great, and in a way, it was those early attempts, and it generated and garnered a lot of excitement because now suddenly there was something else for fans to latch onto. Yeah. It was an easy sell for someone like me, to someone like me. Because radio, of course, for an actor, radio, for a UK-based actor, radio is staple.
He was also teamed up with Charlie Pollard, played by India Fisher, and as soon as their characters meet, they have instant chemistry.
Maybe I should... Is that the greetings over with?
What?
I can do this too.
How? That's good, isn't it? Geronimo taught me that.
How?
There, you got the hang of it already. What? Are you running away from something?
Someone.
No. It's definitely something. I can see it just behind.
Yeah, India, who I didn't know, and we'd never met. She didn't know me either. And right back to when, around the Sharda period, and we were working out of Bristol. We hadn't got to the London studio yet. India was right in at the beginning, and we had to hit it off. We did. The scripts are great. It worked. And in a way, we kind of coined a lot of the relationships. We were all learning.
Here, but not here. Charlie, is that you? I can barely see you, can't reach you. What are you doing? Talk me through it, explain it to me.
I'm putting things to rights. I'm putting an end to this.
No, Charlie, you mustn't listen to me.
But she was great, and we were relaxed and happy and had a nice time, and the stories were good, and I think it worked. Because it was easy, it worked as long as it did.
Paul McGann, and by God, he's a lovely... He could play the Doctor now if he wanted, which would be pretty cool.
It was from this monthly range that also saw one of the most critically acclaimed Doctor Who stories ever made, in 2003's Spare Parts. An origin story very similar to Genesis of the Daleks in 1974, but for the Cybermen, the medium of audio allowing the Cybermen the opportunity to show off the more disturbing and terrifying aspects of their concept that's not really seen in the franchise since their debut in 1966.
Who are you? What are you doing to me?
You will join us. We are the future.
No! Please, no! Please! Help! Help me!
Spare Parts, I thought, was, I think, probably more interesting than Jubilee. And I was more interested about the kind of story and what was going on. It is quite dark, and I do get a kick out of the Yorkshire accents. One of the more heart-wrenching scenes, the time I got most emotional in the story, was when kind of Yvonne gets kind of turned into a Cyberman, and she can't really do anything, and she's essentially stripped of all her humanity, and her dad is just devastated, and it is quite emotional.
Oh no. Yvonne, is that you? What have they done to you? I can't see your face. And they've made you so tall. Oh, my little Vonnie. Let's get this horrid mask off.
Things like Spare Parts was bringing a writer who'd been brilliant in writing Ghostlight for television, and had come and done this brilliant job as sort of genesis of the Cybermen. And it's a beautiful story, and it stands the test of time. I listened to it during lockdown one night, and it is really, if you've never heard it, it's such an amazing story.
It seemed throughout the early years of Big Finish's reign, nothing could stop them. Their efforts to keep the spirit of the programme alive, as well as allowing old Doctors the chance to redeem their incarnations of the character, made sure of that. In 2005, Doctor Who made its legendary return to television, with Christopher Eccleston playing the night incarnation of the character. The show was now being run by Russell T Davies, and was now modernised and cool again. It was darker and grittier, as well as more comedic in tone.
I'm the Doctor, by the way. What's your name?
Rose.
Nice to meet you, Rose. Run for your life!
Thanks in part to the excellent writing by Davies and his team, as well as the performance by Eccleston.
My planet's gone. It's dead. It burned like the Earth. It's just rocks and dust. Before its time.
What happened?
There was a war and we lost.
See, yeah, I really love Eccleston. I find his Doctor to be, from what I've kind of like between what I've listened to and what I've watched, Eccleston is quite a fun doctor, but when something gets serious, he is the most serious person there, and he doesn't take any shit, which I love. And I think he's brilliant at showing compassion as well, which I love. And his like chemistry with Rose.
The BBC, being impressed with Briggs's performance as the Daleks and Cybermen in the audios, hired him to be their official voice actor in the series. And he is still voicing the iconic creatures to this very day.
You would make a good Dalek.
The revival, being the big success that it was, managed to carry over to Big Finish, with them following in suit with the 8th Doctor Adventures, which premiered on BBC 4 Extra. These new box sets were great jumping on points for newcomers and fans who wanted to dive deeper into their favourite incarnations, without waiting every month for a story with their Doctor in it. As the show got more and more popular, so did Big Finish. The company even started creating more content in terms of spin-off media. Characters like Charlie Pollard, River Song, and the Master were getting their own box sets, and audios delving into what they were up to when the Doctor wasn't around.
I think one of the biggest successes that we've had are the spin-offs. When we look at things like Jago and Lightfoot, when we look at Dalek Empire, when we look at Cyberman, when we look at Lady Christina, for example, and Churchill, these box sets, and Unit especially, and these box sets are series that the fans would have loved to have had. It's stuff that we often have to ask, I often have to ask myself, as a fan, is this something I would buy? And if the answer is yes, the chances are a lot of other fans like me would buy it as well. So therefore we're going to do it. It has to justify itself. It has to make sense.
Since the audios were becoming so popular, Big Finish even created a big inclusion into the Doctor Who canon. An audio-exclusive incarnation of the Master, portrayed by legendary character actor Alex McQueen. And yes, he is the same man who plays Neil's dad in The In-Betweeners.
Through here, is it? Of course. Hello, you.
Oh, it's this one. Now, aren't you a sight for sore eyes?
Dr. Harcourt Diath. You're certainly pushing the boat out with the aliases.
I thought it might be the one with the umbrella. Tiresome little man, that accent. I only ever understood one word in 10, but you... Oh, let me look at you. Oh, whatever did you do to your hair?
I'll give you the name of my barber.
Oh,
However, with all the widely available content being produced by the company, many fans often feel intimidated when starting out on their stories.
The audio dramas, the Big Finish stuff, is quite like the continuation stuff from John Gardner and Raymond Benson in terms of the Bond novels, is that there's so many of them, and you're quite confused at the start, and you kind of have to look over them multiple times to try to figure out, okay, where exactly am I? What am I reading? Why is this connected to this or whatever? It is one of them things where like there's so many of them, it's hard to find out where to start, and I think a lot of the time you're looking for recommendations. Like if you just went to the start, I'd say you'd probably be completely lost, and you kind of need to figure out, okay, as a person who has either never listened to a radio drama or has listened to radio dramas but isn't a massive Doctor Who fan, where do you start?
Despite this, there are many guides and videos online about where to begin with Big Finish, so the newcomer should be eased into it without much trouble. Not only did the new series have a big impact on the audio ranges, but the stories that Nick Briggs and co were creating also influenced the modern series and some of its stories. The most famous example being from Rob Sherman's acclaimed story Jubilee, and its connections to the 2005 story Dalek, also written by Sherman.
Hello? Is there anybody in here? Who are you? I heard you cry out in pain. Can I help you? Speak to me. Oh no.
Doctor, you are an enemy of the Daleks. You are to be exterminated.
No, wait!
I've come to help. I'm the Doctor. Impossible.
Doctor! Exterminate!
Not only that, but the acclaimed story Spare Parts, not only impacting the origin of the alternate Earth Cybermen in Age of Steel, but it also had a big influence on the Peter Capaldi story World Enough in Time, where a colony ship from the Cybermen's homeworld, either during or after the events of Spare Parts, start converting its inhabitants and sparking a civil war.
It's a Cyberman. A Mondasian Cyberman. We're just passing through. We're looking for Bill Potts, friend of mine.
Bill Potts?
Yes, Bill Potts. You're a Cyberman. You're part of a neural net. Can you find her?
I am Bill Potts.
Most of the Big Finish stories were eventually confirmed to be considered canon to the official timeline, thanks to a line of dialogue referencing McGann's companions throughout Big Finish. In the 50th anniversary mini-sode Night of the Doctor, which featured Paul McGann playing the Doctor physically for the first time since the 1996 TV movie, making the 8th Doctor's adventures and by extension the other Doctor's audios canon.
Charlie, Carers, Lucy, Tamsin, Molly, friends, companions I've known, I salute you. And Cass, I apologize. Physician, heal thyself.
It was a buzz, you know. It was a buzz to get back in the onto the screen. Not a tiny sense of unfinished business. It was good to put that one to bed, and a great relief and really exciting. It's just exciting. Yeah, of course, I'd love to say, yeah, it was just like I'd never been away, and it wasn't quite like that, but it was thrilling, you know, and it worked. It worked, and that, in large, in almost total part, I think was down to Moffat's great skill.
In recent years, beloved 10th Doctor David Tennant was announced to be returning to the role under the 10th Doctor box set, finally tying up the loose ends between the new series and the audios, bringing the same energy and charisma with Catherine Tate like it's still 2008.
User-friendly tech, Meadow Digital's ahead of the game on the chipsets. Quadruple core nano circuits and a sleek, sexy designer package. Ultra thin, look.
You're talking, but it's all geek to me. Can we go?
Yeah, I suppose. Then again, robots running amok.
During the summer of 2020, it was announced that Christopher Eccleston would also start his own Big Finish series. This is big news considering his fallout with BBC producers during his tenure, as well as never wanting to associate himself with the show, even going as far to reject appearing into the 50th anniversary special. Speaking about his return on the Big Finish podcast, Chris seemed very excited to be back after 15 years.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed playing him again. As I always said, he's always a joy to play somebody with that amount of optimism, enthusiasm and brains and heart. 2 hearts.
He's really, really enjoyed being back playing the part, because it's the sort of part that you love playing and you want to play forever. David Tennant comes back and plays the Doctor for us. Chris Eccleston's come back. I'm sure other Doctors will come back. I mean, we found him to be absolutely delightful and very, very easy to work with, very constructive, a very sweet man, very positive. There's no agenda with him, and he's been a joy, actually. He's been an absolute joy, and we've really enjoyed recording with him. Hopefully we'll do some more in the future.
Man, I'm on the Christopher Eccleston hype train. I'm there. I'm on board that train. So when I heard, man, they're getting Christopher Eccleston back, I'm like, I will be straight on them audio dramas, because I love his Doctor, really.
After 22 years of production, it was announced that the monthly range of Doctor Who audios were finally ending in order to make it easier for newcomers. A bittersweet feeling to many fans of the company since the beginning. From the audio visuals up until the Sirens of Time, the 8th Doctor adventures to Christopher Eccleston's return. The group of fans that have come a long way in those nearly 30 years of work. Even inspiring fans to create their own audio stories, such as the excellent Exhausted Supplies, which can be found on YouTube. Similar to how Nicholas Briggs and Jason Haigh Ellery and Gary Russell first started off Big Finish in the first place. Fans creating content because of their love of the character, and as long as that love is still there, fans will continue to follow the company's high quality for years to come.
Derek Jacobi once said to me that the great thing about audio acting is you don't have to hit your mark, you don't have to wear makeup, you don't have to make sure the light's in the right position, you don't have to worry about hair in the gate, you don't have to worry about all of those technical things that happen with filming. It's just about the acting. And also, if you do something slightly wrong, you can pick it up immediately and slot it straight in. So audio is a very simple, easy, and lovely opportunity to be just about the script and the acting.
Doctor Who The Finish Line, narrated, written and produced by Will Burke. Special thanks to Paul McGann, Michael Kirwan, Jason Haigh, Ellery and Michelle Daly. Visit bigfinish.com or the official Doctor Who Spotify to show support for the company and listen to the audio stories featured in this documentary.